All right. So let's start with the easy one. To begin, 30 seconds. Opening pitch. Who you are and why you're running.
I'm running to fight Donald Trump every single day that he is in the Donald Trump is a walking, talking constitutional crisis. Every day that he is in office, every day he empowers Stephen Miller and all of his cabinet secretaries, but right now led by Kristi Noem and Homans and all of these people who are using a paramilitary force to occupy Minneapolis, who are undermining constitutional protections, who are using an ICE agency which should be abolished. It shouldn't even be allowed to exist as it is. So that's why I voted last night no on the United States Senate. We want to make sure that they would be made accountable. So that's this week. Although Trump gives you something every week: healthcare, education, environment, climate change. You go down the line, it is one ongoing crisis that Trump is creating for every single aspect of American life.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Do you consider yourself progressive? And if so, how would you define progressive?
I think there's enough evidence to convict me of being a progressive. On the floor of the United States Senate, over the last 1 year, I have voted against more Trump nominees and Trump policies than any other member of the United States Senate. I'm number one. I'm voting no. And that is because he is running a criminal enterprise out of the Oval Office for the enrichment of himself, his family, and his friends, and all policies are being compromised in a way that is undermining our democracy. And he does want to make America great again, but it's by making America hate again. That's his strategy. It is to make America a country where black and brown people have to walk around wondering whether or not law enforcement officials can just grab them because of the color of their skin. That's his idea of making America great again. And we just have to stand up every day, and I'm proud of the progressive movement. I'm proud of how since day one at 8 a.m. you have been rising up and fighting in order to protect our democracy against this would-be king, would-be despot. And we're not just an ordinary state. We're Massachusetts, where the Minutemen and Minutewomen rose up 250 years ago to say to King George, no, we are not going to have a king. We are going to fight. We're not going to be able to knock on people's doors without a judicial warrant and pull them out of their home. You're not going to be able to take people and to be able to imprison them or to compromise their constitutional rights without giving them all of the protections of the United States Constitution. So yes, I am a proud progressive, and I have been, and I show that every day that I'm given the privilege of serving in the United States Senate. Thank you.
All right, so some policy questions. A recent buzzword in politics has been affordability. We've heard it's a hoax. What does that mean to you? And what would your top priorities in making Massachusetts more affordable Massachusetts and country for all?
Affordability means that healthcare prices are skyrocketing. 24 million Americans, including 338,000 in Massachusetts, just lost that premium support. There's a man in Natick with lung cancer who now has a $300,000 bill, not $30,000 bill because of that repeal. That's affordability across the board, at the kitchen table, on healthcare. because of Trump's assault on Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, NIH research funding. It is a direct assault. Trump is assaulting our energy. He invaded Venezuela for the oil industry, but at the same time, he declared war on us by canceling all of our offshore wind, which is our answer to having a long extension cord plug into us from off our own coastline, so that we don't have to be dependent upon the natural gas industry and the oil industry, what is White House. And the White House is just a wholly owned subsidiary of the oil and gas industry. Those are increases in electricity rates for people on cold days in New England. And the same thing is true for his tariffs. He does not have the right to impose tariffs. The Constitution gives that power to the members of the United States House and Senate. So those taxes on food, on clothing, on all of the products which people are buying is going right into those bills on the kitchen table. And that must be repealed as well. Although there is no evidence that the United States House or Senate under Republican control have the courage to do something about it. You only need three things in politics: backbone, backbone, and backbone. That's all you need. And the Republicans are not demonstrating any ability to stand up, and as a result, food prices, healthcare costs, electricity prices, all of the things that go right to the core of people trying to meet their budget each month are being assaulted by Donald Trump, and that's what I lead on. I was successful. In fact, the only time in the last 50 years anyone was held in contempt of Congress, ever, in 50 years, is Ralph D. Latore, when I forced Congress to hold him in contempt for destroying the Stewart health care system and dramatically harming the health care access for people all across the Commonwealth. That's what we're going to need if we're going to stand up for people and make all of those critical items affordable to them on their kitchen table.
Thank you, Senator. So it's already glory here today, so let's ask a question about young children and families. Central to any discussion of affordability is universal childcare, especially in a mixed delivery model that can achieve flexibility and cultural competence. Parents experience high costs, providers often lack stability, healthcare, retirement, liability insurance they have to obtain, and they're largely women of color educators, workforce, often face insufficient wages. Beyond tax subsidies for families, what direct federal funding would you support to stabilize and sustain home-based family child care educators?
Yep. So, obviously, childcare has to be at the top of the list of the issues in which we deal with, because it will unleash families to be able to go out into the workforce and to provide for care for their families themselves. But we have to ensure that we make it affordable. But we also have to make sure that that we have the workers as well to do that. And in the next 2 weeks, temporary protected status for Haitians is going to be removed. And a very large part of our home care workforce now are communities of color that provide that workforce. So we have to make sure they as well get the health care coverage they as well get the pay which they deserve. They as well are able to take care of their families as they take care of the families that have children that need care. So from my perspective, that has to be at the top of the list. Because that will unleash the human potential of those families, but simultaneously, we have to make sure that we take care of those caregivers who are there, who are helping millions of families all across our country, and then offer them a forgotten part of the equation.
We're at 10 minutes left.
Oh, it's all right. So let's maybe move it forward. In that case, your colleague, Senator Warren, has framed a major political question as whether politicians stand with the billionaire class or whether they stand with the rest of us. Highlighting that appears across issues of interest policy, healthcare policy, housing policy, the currency regulation, tech policy, and so on. you agree with her? And what steps would you advocate for in order to rein in corporate power?
Well, of course I agree with her. We work together as partners every single day on the floor of the Senate, and that's why Elizabeth Warren has endorsed me in this race for re-election. Yes, of course I agree with her. Obviously, we have a crisis in our country. Big tech, big banks, big oil, big gas. They have purchased this administration. They have purchased the cabinet posts of each one of these agencies that are responsible for standing up and fighting for ordinary Americans. And it can be Lutnick at Commerce, it can be Wright at the Department of Energy, it can be Burgum at the Department of Interior. You go all the way down the line. And each one of them is just there to protect the most powerful, wealthy, billionaire class in our nation at the expense of working families, of blue-collar and poor families in our country. And they were able last July to extract a tax break for themselves. But what was the price that had to be paid? $1 trillion cut in Medicaid, $500 billion cut in Medicare, $300 billion cut in the Affordable Care Act, the dismantling of the Department of Education, of IDEA for disabled kids. All of that is part of the price that these billionaires expect the ordinary families are going to have to pay in order to pay for the tax breaks for the billionaires. And so from my perspective, that's at the top of the list. My father drove a truck for the Hood Milk Company. I am a United States Senator because there was a fairer America that had been created that gave opportunity to people. What they're doing on behalf of the billionaire class is they are looting these agencies and their programs that disproportionately now help Black and brown families. They help the new generation of immigrants in our country to be able to maximize their God-given abilities. And I live in Malden, I still live in Malden, and Malden High School last year was 25% white, 25% Black, 25% Asian, 25% Latino. Or another way of saying, the future of our country, where it's all headed. And the question is, are we going to invest in now, or are we just going to leave the system and give the money to billionaires? And that's what Elizabeth Warren and I do every single day. And when we go towards the microphone, you can see the Republicans starting to back up from the microphone because they know they are in a fight. Because we're not just the base state, we're the brain state as well. We know you have to invest in the future, and you just can't lose that future. Yes.
Senator Markey, as of next year, you will have served in the U.S. Congress, whether House or Senate, for a combined 50 years. Wow. Thank you, and applause for that. So, why did you decide to run again rather than make a space for the diverse political talent in state? Or what have you not accomplished in 50 years that you expect to accomplish in another 6? And why do you think it will finally happen?
Well, I'm there because, I'll be honest with you, Donald Trump brings out the Malden in me every day I get up. Because he is assaulting all of the programs that benefit those kids from maximizing their dreams the way I was allowed to maximize my dreams. And so this is the most energized I've ever been. This is the hardest I've ever fought in my whole life. And yeah, Bernie Sanders is 5 years older than me, but I don't think anyone thinks he's not fighting hard every single day. We want him there. We want him fighting every single day. And I'm with him. I'm with him. Even last night, we had an amendment to move the $70 billion for ICE over to $70 billion for Medicaid. We did that last night. We can see the whole history of all each and every one of these programs. And I'm committed to working on fighting this billionaire class. I'm working on the issues of the future, AI. AI is insinuating itself into all of the lives of every American. I have introduced The bill, AI Civil Rights Act, endorsed by every major civil rights group in America, so that all of the discrimination in housing, in employment, aren't moved online and supercharged with AI. I'll introduce the AI environment to make sure that the AI industry doesn't gobble up all of the electricity and force consumers to have to pay higher rates. AI in the workforce, so that AI is not allowed to turn workers into automatons. AI and privacy and children, so that they cannot compromise the privacy of kids in our society, that they wind up with serious mental health issues. In 2023, 1 in 4 teenage girls in America contemplated suicide. 1 in 8 teenage girls actually attempted suicide. 1 in 5 LGBT youth attempted suicide in 2023. The Surgeon General points the accusing finger at social media. My legislation, which I've already been able to have passed out of the Senate Commerce Committee, puts restrictions on their ability to exploit these kids. We have a mental health crisis in our country. That's my legislation as well. Workforce, environment, civil rights, and for children. And we also need AI and biowarfare and nuclear weapons, so we don't get an accidental nuclear war, because it's not human beings but AI that is making the decision. That's the future, and we have to be willing to take on the tech industry. We have to be willing to stand up to them and to be able to fight them and to beat them and win. So that's what the future should be all about. That's what we should be talking about. That future that protects young people, protects immigrants, protects kids of color, and protects their future as our future was protected by generations before us. Yes.
One more?
3 minutes left.
I have one more. All right. So you were here seeking our endorsement as you were seeking lots of other people's endorsements. You also make endorsements. So we were just curious to know from all the candidates, how do you make your own decision about who to endorse?
I endorse based upon whether or not that person is going to advance a progressive vision for the future. So I'll give you one example. In Minnesota, because Tina Smith is leaving, there's an open seat for the Senate. So Elizabeth Warren and I, we talked 6 months ago, and we decided that Peggy Flanagan should be the person who we get behind, and we worked in order to make sure that she would be the successor to Tina Smith. And Minnesota might have another race as well if Amy Klobuchar becomes the governor, and we would do the same thing. So what I tried to do, by the way, in partnership with Elizabeth, is what I try to do is to look ahead and lead the way, to make sure that there is a vision that people aren't looking to the past, but rather are looking to the future with regard to the idealism that we need to bring to these issues. Because in many quarters, there's a nostalgia for a time that never existed that is replacing the idealism that we need to deal with our future. Because the past is just a memory, and the future is the hard reality of the poor, the sick, the elderly, the black and brown and immigrant and disabled communities in our country. And so the formula I use is I look for the people who are going to be willing to fight those fights, to stand up against the bullies in our society, to ensure that we are protecting those who need protection the most, and making the enemies that all of you would be making if you were on the floor of the United States Senate as well. And I'm proud of the enemies I've made. Elizabeth is proud of the enemies she's made, and we're going to go and continue to make those enemies for you, and to try to endorse the people who will come in and be our allies in waging that fight for a more fair, more just, more equitable future for everyone in our country.
Thank you.